Good morning and welcome to Mayor's Weekly. I'm pleased to have you with us this morning, and joining this morning is Kathy Shamliss. And what we're going to do this morning is take a quick trip through how the sidewalks that have been mentioned numerous times right here are built in this city, and those projects, much like anything, is always a critic for anything you do, and there's been some critics that what are we spending money on sidewalks for when you could spend it on other things, and what we're going to accomplish this morning, and I say that with total certainty, that the monies that put these sidewalks in, handle the construction, is not something that we have any discretion with. And so what I've asked Kathy to do, and the reason for the timing of this, we're now working to secure funding for another phase of sidewalks. It's fresh on everybody's mind. The process is fresh on everybody's mind, and I'll help. But I've asked Kathy to, I'm going about to ask Kathy to kind of walk through how we make this happen. And we're going to talk specifically about our next project, not so much the location, but the mechanics of making it happen. Kathy, is that asking too much?
No, sir. No, sir. The grant or pool of money for these sidewalks come from the Department of Transportation, and we refer to them as TAP. That's Transportation Alternative Projects. And so, first of all, to even apply for that, your project has to be eligible. And so, some people may say, well, why aren't you applying for money for different things? Well, the money, the state of Alabama and the federal government sets out requirements for grant funding, and you have to apply and meet the criteria of what they've laid the money out to be funded.
And it's a narrow path.
It's a narrow path, and so for this particular pool of money, the project has to provide safety for non-motorists, and so, Now,
I heard you say non-motorists, that would probably prevent you from using or applying for this money to light a roadway.
To light a roadway, you could light a pathway that pedestrians travel, such as a sidewalk pathway.
But to go out and light Highway 125 or whatever, you couldn't do that, could you?
Can't do it. It has, and it's really for sidewalks or pathways that pedestrians would travel either by walking or biking.
Yeah.
And so
by walking, and the reason I'm emphasizing this is I'm trying to provide information to some criticism we've drawn, and that's why I'm doing that.
Right.
So people can understand our limitations and restrictions that we have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these projects are competitive. So, they may wonder sometimes, well, why can't we get sidewalks in the neighborhood, maybe in a neighborhood where they live? Well, these sidewalks grant funds are specifically for downtown areas that are connecting schools, government services, housing, public housing. So all of that plays a part.
Under the broad heading of urban development, is it not?
Correct. And and then the projects have to be meet all of ADA requirements, and a lot of times and
that's the Americans
with Disability, and so sometimes we're taking up sidewalk, but most of the time if we're taking up sidewalk and putting down the sidewalk, it's to make our sidewalks handicap accessible and safer for the individuals to walk down, because sometimes our sidewalks in the past, you know, they've had places in them that may not have been as safe as they should be or could be. So all of those things are looked at by the state when they decide whether or not they will award a project.
Yeah. And Kathy, some of the sidewalks, as I look back here, I believe the city was founded in 1887, and some of the sidewalks we've taken up, I believe, they were put in place that year, don't you?
You have
They
to
look that
wonder.
way.
You have to wonder. But, you know, it's not being done for really looks. It's an attempt to get our sidewalks in compliance with ADA and to make them safer, make our city more walkable.
Right. Now, Kathy, let's get into the mechanics of this. We have a grant writer that understands the process from A to Z, knows the likelihood of a successful outcome, and because their compensation ties to the grant being successful, we don't spend any money on that, do we?
No, sir.
It's all on the other side of the curtain from us. And what we do is, as a part of assisting this grant writer, as an engineering firm that has done, I think, all of our TAP projects, and you come up with a cost estimate, which Kathy has just received on this project. And that cost estimate is made up of hard costs, soft costs, that being engineering costs. You put all that together, and all of those costs are reimbursable if you get it right. And the grant writer is not going to file this grant application if we don't have it right. Again, he's not going to file this grant application if he thinks our likelihood of being approved is not good. Then what Kathy knows, what the city knows based on this, is here's the cost estimate. It's 80-20. 80% of the money is funded through the state of Alabama, and it's important to know this. Those are federal funds that flow through the Alabama Department of Transportation, and there are numerous strings attached. And if you don't satisfy all of those conditions, then guess what? You don't get your money back, because we pay and then get reimbursed. Is that right, Kathy?
And that is exactly.
And so, you know, we have exposure, and that really is a force that causes us to be compliant, is it not? Because we want our money back.
Well, for sure. And, you know, a lot of times we say grants, but you're exactly right. It's cost reimbursements.
Right.
So.
And what we know is this cost estimate, let's just make the math simple. If it was $1 million project, then the city of Jasper would put up $200,000, and we would get $800,000. Well, simple math tells you if you can do a deal or make an enhancement to your city, and somebody pays 80% out and you pay 20, it bears looking at. And we know that this is number 6 or 7, and within several $1 million worth of work that's been done in our city. And I said 80% of it has been paid for by funds that were not generated in the city of Jasper, and that's a plus. Then what Kathy does, once she knows that, let's talk about the timeline of this, Kathy. We'll apply for this grant now, and we'll know whether we're approved or not. We're here in June 2022. When will we probably know if we're approved?
You know, maybe October, could be January of 2023. It's when the governor decides she wants to release who has been successful.
Then we're approved, then sometime later next year that we would be able to begin this project. Is that correct?
That's correct, and we have 2 years from the time that we sign a grant agreement to complete it.
And if this was going back to my example of $1 million deal, and we have to put up $200,000, you as chief financial officer have got to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we've got $200,000 to put in the pot with that, don't we?
Yes, sir, and what I will do, because we have put in a grant application, is go ahead in the 2023 budget and reserve our match as well as our design cost and our admin cost on this particular project, with hoping that it will be awarded.
Yeah. And Kathy, you've heard me say this many times, and it's the absolute truth. If you don't have the match, you don't play.
Well, for sure, and you know, sometimes, just like with this TAP 5 project, the city paid for the cost of that project, and so we're waiting for a reimbursement right now of $500,000.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to have some money
Yeah.
to even start these type projects.
And we don't have a credit line with anybody. We paid that with real dollars of taxpayer money, hadn't we? And we're waiting for reimbursement.
Yes, sir.
And if we had just been negligent and not had the engineering firm complying with the American Disabilities Act, whatever, that money wouldn't flow back to us, would it not?
No, sir.
So, it's good. But that's how it works. The important things, I think, to know about this is that limitations, what you can do with the money, that 80% of this is paid with money that's not generated by Jasper taxpayers. The taxes you pay on your house, what you pay on your groceries, clothes, cars, whatever, none of that contributes to the 80%. It does contribute to the 20%. But again, back to the limitations, we just can't go out and on a whim and decide we'll do this, that, or other. The rules are written in stone, and we're going to comply with them. And the final decision is not made by the mayor; it's made by the council. But I do not foresee the council turning down the opportunity to apply for grants where we pick up 80% of the money and continue to make enhancements to our city. Welcome your questions on that. I think that's as simple as it can be put. It's not rocket science. Again, limitations, what we can do, we put up 20%, they put up 80%, and we make nice enhancements to our city. So that's a plus. And while there have been critics, there have been far, far more folks praising what's going on in downtown Jasper and improvements of our sidewalks. And just had a person at this table a week or so ago that had some physical limitations, and talking about with a sidewalk design, handicap parking spaces allowed this person to access things that previously they couldn't access. That's what it's about, isn't it, Kathy?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Good. So we're pleased to have you with us today, and welcome your questions. And if you have any question, and specifically about what we talked about today on Sidewalk, send them our way, and we'll have you a prompt answer.